Hello. This is Friday, June 30th, 1995. As part of our continuing celebration of the 50th anniversary of the conclusion of World War II, we continue on with the project of interviewing veterans of that particular war. We have with us this morning Ernie Girard, who is essentially representing the U.S. Navy. You didn't realize you were going to be representing the U.S. Navy.
No, I didn't get okay from Washington.
Fortunately, there are those things where we don't have to get okays. We just go ahead and go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Girard, could you tell us where were you born and raised?
I was, excuse me, I was born 194 East Albany Street, which is, the house is still there today, and it's owned by my cousin. And I was raised down mostly short 2 blocks away from there. And we moved to the corner of, let's see, it was Lawrence and 12th Street, Lawrence and Alma Street today. And I went to Oak Hill School, from there to Fitzhugh Park, and from there to Oswego High School.
I must have known you from Oak Hill or Fitzhugh Park.
Yeah.
You have to be one or the other.
Yeah.
And when did you first enlist in the service?
Yeah, well, as it turned out, I went into the, excuse me, I went into the Navy in September 10th, 1943, and which I was inducted, I believe, in Albany, and from there I went to Sampson Naval Base, which is up on Seneca Lake, and I went through boot training, what we call boot training, which is recruit training, and from there I went to Sampson. We used to call it Sampson Tech Signal School, which was held there. And after, I think it was 16 weeks, went to Little Creek, Virginia for amphibious training. And after we received our amphibious training there, we went down to Charleston, South Carolina, to pick up our ship, which was the LSM Landing Ship Medium 137.
Okay, now in order to do all of this, you had to leave high school, is that right?
I didn't say I left high school today.
No.
Yes, I did.
Interrupted high school.
Yes, I left high school before, so my high school was interrupted. I left high school and went into the Navy, and that's what, and then that was the sequence of events.
Mm-hmm. And then, of course, after the war was over, you went back.
After the war was over, I came back and finished high school. During my early life, I had a series of sicknesses, and which kind of set me back in school a little bit. And so I didn't. I was a little older, and so when the time came, I went into the Navy, and so I came back. I wanted to finish, and so I did.
Now, after you left Little Creek, Virginia, for your training, you went and picked up your ship.
Yes.
And that was in Charleston, South Carolina?
Yes, right in the shipyard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was brand new?
Brand new. We outfitted it.
Oh, terrific.
Yeah, and we weren't too good at outfitting. I mean, that was our first ship that we outfitted. So, but we did it, and it was just one of those jobs that you were tossed into it. And fortunately, we had. I think our captain was probably the only fellow that had very much training. We did have 2 or 3 enlisted men that had previously been in the Navy and knew something about what things should, how things should be. But they were all good workers, and we got things done lots of times that we made our captain smile, because we remember one time we had 20 tons of ammunition to load, and we carried it across another ship and loaded it in our ship before they were done. And he really got a kick out of that. He said, well, I got some good fellows aboard this ship
Yeah.
that have, and everybody did it. I mean, even to the yeoman, everybody turned to and worked. And they were a good bunch when it came to, a lot of them had worked in mines in Pennsylvania, and they knew how to work. They were good people to work with.
Now, your ship then went from South Carolina to the Pacific?
Yeah, first we made a trip up from South Carolina up through, you gotta take a throw passenger here. So we made what's called a shakedown cruise.
Shakedown cruise,
Yes.
all right.
And we went back up into Chesapeake Bay, and we ran into, of course, most people back in those days, it seemed like you always ran into a storm off North Carolina. The name leaves me right now.
Hatteras.
Cape Hatteras,
Cape
yes,
Hatteras.
that's the one. And so we went up through there, and then we did run into a hurricane up in Chesapeake Bay, and that kind of we got to be more veterans as far as handling the ship. Caught on fire one time, got the fire out all right, and we just were gradually learning to do the job. And everybody was learning to do their job. As I say, we had a storekeeper, a yeoman, a pharmacist mate, one of our acting petty officers on a deck force, acting chief petty officer, rather. Some of these fellows had done these jobs before, so fortunately they helped the rest of us. Our communications department was all new, and our gunners mates were all new.
It sounds like you had quite a shakedown cruise.
We did have a.
But came through with
Yeah,
flying
that's
colors.
right. That's right. We did. We came through. We didn't have any. We didn't have any bad accidents, and we did. And then we came back down, and went down through. And we touched on. We finally found out that we needed a cover over the conning tower, and we got down to Key West, Florida, and they didn't have any canvas, so they went to ashore there, and they picked up a bunch of lumber, and they built a covering over the top of the conning tower out of lumber. And one of the fellows said it looked like a chicken coop. And so we had a lot of fun about that for a while. There weren't too many things to have fun about in those days, only what you made yourself. And this was fortunately we had a good group that could. We had a good rounded group that could have fun about some things, and it made the best out of a kind of a poor condition. I mean, this thing wasn't the easiest thing to have to do. Oh, I forgot. Well, when we got up to Chesapeake Bay, then they pulled us in there at Norfolk, and we were tied up there for, maybe a week and a half. They were waiting to see if they needed us at Normandy. And as it turned out, they didn't. I was hoping they did, but they didn't. And we went to, then we were to go to Japan. I'd rather have gone over to the other side.
Now you got to Key West, Florida, built the chicken coop.
Yeah,
And
then we proceeded and we went to the Panama Canal.
oh,
And we went through the Panama Canal, and had one night of liberty in Cocosolo, and then we went through the canal back up to San Diego. And we got in San Diego, and they were going to give us some more training. We went to school there, spent one morning in the school, and we said, we know all this sort of thing. We've had this all time and again. Of course, they didn't know that. And so, I mean, the instructors at the school didn't know this. So we got taken out of there, and then we went to San Pedro. In San Pedro, they took off two 20mm guns on the front of the ship and put on a 40mm gun, which was a bigger gun, and which is much safer to use than the 20mm. The 40mm would go in the air, and then after a period of time, it would explode up there. It didn't have to come back down to explode. So then we picked up our cargo and went to we went to Oahu.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
In the Hawaiian Islands.
In the Hawaiian Islands. We went to, and we were there. We went, and I saw where the oil had run up the banks from the day that the Japanese attacked it. That place must have been something, because there was oil for many feet up the banks that you could still see is there. So it can't be that it hurt the environment an awful lot, or we'd have heard about it, right? You know?
Now this would be 1940.
1944.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
1944.
what month would this be?
Somewhere in the area of October. Somewhere in October, November. I probably.
This is the point is that this is almost 3 years after Pearl Harbor. And
Yeah, and it's still there. Yeah, well, you know, it was still there at that time. I thought maybe it might be. No. I might have it. I could.
I was trying to get just a rough approximation of how much after.
Okay. All right. Let's see here. Here we are. Yeah. This would give us the time here.
Okay, 24 October arrived at Pearl Harbor.
Yeah. Yeah. See, there's a. All right. So we can use this.
And then, how long did you stay there?
Oh, let's see here. We were there.
Until November, I think.
Yeah. It wasn't too long. We were there, and November departed alone for the South Pacific. Oh, we did.
Not in a convoy.
Wait till I tell you a story. We started off with a convoy. We got out a few miles, and the hydraulic coupling on one of the engines went out, and we had to go back and to get fixed. And then we went out by ourselves. Then we started alone, and I'll tell you that get to be a little bit hairy, we'll call it, because we were there all by ourselves. One time I remember we got called to general quarters, see a plane coming, as it turned out to be ours, fortunately. One of our PBYs.
Probably wondering what you were doing out there by yourself.
Yeah, that's the story, yeah.
Now, how seaworthy was this craft? Was it?
Well, I think we were about 3/8 of an inch thick, which isn't an awful lot. But it took. You didn't go through the waves. You went over the top.
Okay.
It rode right over the top of everything, and fortunately, being a landing craft, we could go up on any beach, and of course, coral reef is tougher to. Coral's tougher to go on than sand, but we could do it, and we did. We used to beat up the propellers sometimes. They had big nicks in them. They had to be fixed, but we did.
I guess what I really was wondering about was how seasick did people get on this craft?
Everybody, except one man. I think there was one man that didn't get seasick.
Iron stomach.
Yeah, I don't know what the story was, but even the captain, even the captain got seasick.
Was it a very fast ship?
18 knots was our top speed, which was fair for a smaller ship. We were faster than an LST.
Now, before we started taping, you told us the dimensions of the ship.
Yeah, I think it was 206 foot long, 33 feet wide, and we were from the top of the radar to the water were 55 foot, and we do 3 foot forward of water and 6 foot aft.
All I can think of, Ernie, is that our ship is so small and the ocean is so wide.
Yeah.
I'm sure that
Yeah.
must have been that feeling.
Yes, that is true, and I'll tell you, and when you separate from a convoy to go in for a landing, and there's only 4 of you, you get smaller and smaller.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And,
So your first destination was going to be Guadalcanal?
yep, and the first one was, we arrived on the 18th of November. We arrived at Guadalcanal and anchored off a place called Tagamo Point. We also sailed to the Russell and Florida Islands and discharged cargo. Then the 21st we went over to Bougainville Island, and of course the Japanese were still on some of these islands. Just because we were there doesn't mean that they'd left.
Mm-hmm.
They just stayed to themselves and didn't make themselves available. And they.
Was Guadalcanal been invaded by the time you
Oh yeah,
arrived?
oh yeah. When we were there, they were what you might call us in the States as being secure.
Okay.
But,
Mopped up, I guess.
But no, not the mopped up part.
Oh, okay, not
Because-
yet.
No, no.
Okay.
No, they, I used to have a hobby of, not a habit anyway of, I like to get out away from things, and I've always liked to look around. And one time I jumped down into a foxhole, and the boys, the rest of the crew was playing ball, and it was a little too hot for me to play ball, I figured, and so I dropped down in this foxhole, and I looked around to get the general perspective a soldier would get looking the situation over, and I thought to myself at that time, I said, I better get out of here, because these Japanese weren't all out of that area at that time, and I could have got shot and nobody would ever know where I was, you know, because they weren't with me, so.
What did you do at Guadalcanal?
Oh, we just shuttled equipment back and forth and so forth. But at Bougainville, we picked up two bulldozers, the biggest that the Army had in those days, and 5 tanks, and 3 ducks. And on the ducks, we had two Piper Cubs to be used for reconnaissance at the invasion of Lingayen Gulf.
Mm-hmm. And the ducks were these amphibious vehicles, right?
Yes, they were an amphibious type vehicle. They were a little bit bigger than a Jeep, and they had a propeller that would allow them to go in the water. And they didn't have too much freeboard on them, but you could only use them in the harbor because, we'll say it, 3-foot wave would run right over the top of them.
Right. What was it like when you were on the ship between islands, or for long periods of time? What sort of things would you do on the ship?
Well, all visual communications and some voice communications. We had radio. We had radio for at night. We didn't do in a unless the place was really secured. We never would shine a light at night because that was just a focal point for Japanese to bomb or because they though they were somewhat secured, they'd still send a plane over now and again, and we'd still have to stand in general quarters. It was underway, I stood a watch, what we would call a watch. It was a shift, and you were on four on and 8 off, or 4 on and 12 off, depending upon how many people we had involved. And you used to do take care of all the visual communications, also do the dead reckoning on our navigation, and plot the course for the 4 hours that you were on duty, and make available the information to the officer of the deck, the various things that you were going through, and record all weather. We had there was quite a few. Even when we were anchored, we had 19 different things to record every half hour, so which kept us pretty busy. So, and these reports were then copied into what's called they were copied into a rough deck log, then they were put into a smooth deck log, which was sent to Washington.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think we had gotten to the point where you were ready for the invasion of Luzon.
Yeah. Could I be excused for just a minute?
Well, sure, of course.
Okay. Well, after Bougainville, were you loaded on tanks and the bulldozers and the ducks? Where did you go after that?
We went up to Markham Bay and Boona Roads in New Guinea, and did a rehearsal for landing. The fellows in the army that was on board, that was operating the tanks, they had been already made some invasions, and they were old hands at this thing, and so they knew just what they were to do. And so then we went after that. After we went to New Guinea, we came back to Manus Island, and we got ready to form a convoy to go to Lingayen Gulf. And the 27th of December for 1944, we're underway, sailing towards orders towards Lingayen Gulf, Luzon, and the Philippine Islands. And it was quite a long voyage, which took our convoy into the islands. And then the 7th of January 1945, we made the first convoy with the first contact with the enemy at sundown, and several Japanese planes made an attack on the convoy's starboard side, and we got apparent 2 planes were shot down, possibly 1 damage to one of the ships. And on the 8th, we got more. We had more attacks coming, and on the 9th of January, we arrived in the morning, early in the morning, at Lingayen Gulf, and then we came in and got close to shore, but we didn't make a beaching until 10 a.m. at Lingayen Gulf.
Okay. Okay. And then at 10 a.m. you pulled up right to the beach and unloaded.
Before we got to the beach, early in the morning, we unloaded the ducks that we had on board, and they took the aircraft that was on them and went ashore and put the wings on the aircraft. The wings were folded back to make it possible for them to travel on the ducks and get in aboard ship. And then they went ashore and put the aircraft together and went on reconnaissance missions. And they used to stop back and visit with us a good many times. Of course, they were on board our ship over a month, and we got to know the fellows real well, and it got to be sort of friends, and so anytime that they wanted to stop for lunch, why they were invited to come aboard, and they would, of course, with a Piper Cub, the beach is a landing strip. So if we were on the beach, they could pop in for lunch, drive right up to the bow, and walk aboard. And they were, we had a very good relationship with the Army in this particular way.
So it only took a short amount of beach for these
Oh yeah.
Cubs to take off?
Oh yes. Oh, it's a very short distance. I don't know exactly how many feet it takes, but the beach were hard, you know, and it was on a slight angle, but they could land and take off, and they'd pop in. We'd have lunch while we were sitting there on the beach, and then they'd leave, and they did the same thing with dinner and any other meal that they wanted to come ashore. They're always welcome. We always had enough. And there was only 2 or 3 people that would be coming anyway.
Now, this landing was accomplished without much opposition?
Yeah, there were a few things that did happen there. They dropped there was a few mortars and so forth. We had one bomb was dropped off of our port bow, inflicting only 1 casualty. And he was taken off, and he came back a few days later. And we were one time when we were leaving the beach one time, one of those big combers come up, and we narrowly flipped us over. And I remember I was standing probably 3 feet from the gunwale of the ship, and it hit me right here. I was leaning so far over that it hit me right here. So it was up at probably that angle. Pretty near tipped over, but not quite. But fortunately, we all had our life jackets on. And if it had tipped over, well then we'd have bobbed to the surface probably. Anyway, this is what happened, and we happened to hit it exactly broadside, and it really got everybody wet, because some of it did come over and got everybody wet. There was a lot of fun about it, but it could have been serious.
Yeah.
Now, while you were on Luzon, did you manage to put into Manila? Or?
No, we didn't go near Manila at that time. We just worked back and forth around there, and we didn't get around Manila. We were on some of our duties. We went to Ormac, and then we went to on the west coast then we went over to Leyte, and so we spent a lot of time picking up cargo and moving it around in various areas. And then we're getting ready to make the invasion into Okinawa. On 25th of March 1945, we picked up medical forces of the Army and a group of ambulances and other type medical equipment, and got ready to make the invasion on Okinawa on April 1st, 1945. We had a rough sea passage, and going up through there, it wasn't an easy passage. It was quite a few days after we got there that before we could unload. I think it was 12 or 13 days after we were there that we were able to unload our troops, because they couldn't get ashore. There was too much action on the shore. And right there from our ship, I could look over and see them using flamethrowers. So they were right there.
Right.
You know, this sort of thing. We could observe the small arms fire and the flamethrowers and everything right from where we were, and it wasn't too far away. Fortunately, they didn't decide to turn on us, or we'd have had our hands full for a while.
Huh.
And then after, while we were working, whenever you're in an invasion area, you carried anything from pork and beans to 16-inch shells, everything that was needed to go from one place to another. Sometimes it was from ship to ship, sometimes it was from a cargo ship to battleship. We'd transfer shells to a battleship, and you rolled them down the deck like you would barrels, you know.
Wow.
Don't hit the
The nose in it.
the noses of them, you know. But that was part of the job, and it was hazardous. It was quite hazardous, and but we took that in stride. And
Would you also transfer everything from pork and beans to ammunition to someplace on shore?
oh yeah,
You'd
oh
do all
sure,
that?
yeah. We handled mortar shells and various things like that. In fact, one night I remember we had on a load of aircraft gasoline and a load of mortar shells. And that night they didn't send. The Army usually sent an unloading party, and they didn't send an unloading party that night, and it was coming. And we usually had air raids after dark, and our deck was volatile. So that night we took, and everybody got into the act, and we rolled the barrels off into the water and up the beach ourselves, and took off our engineering officer checked the weight of the specific gravity of the mortar shells, and found out that they would float, and in the cases that they were in, and we floated those all out.
Wow.
So we got out of it and managed to clear, because a stray shell sometimes, if it landed in that area, would put us into an inferno.
Wow.
And I had seen on a number of occasions ammunition barges and also ships and gasoline barges catch on fire, and they just lost the whole thing, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, people would get away from it, but they were, I mean, you could see them swimming in the water until somebody picked them up, because if one shell hit, then it would start a fire, and then the fire would spread. The fire would spread to the rest of the barrels. I've seen a 50-gallon barrel take right off and go through the air 30, 40 feet.
Wow.
Yeah, because of the gasoline pouring out of it and the force of it. You know, this sort of thing. It was a regular small explosion.
Talking about the oil, tell me before we were on camera about how when you were in harbor, that there'd be smoke, that if you knew enemy planes were flying over, that there would make kind of a smoke to cover the ship. If you tell me about that?
Every evening when we were overseas in a battle area, we had a machine on there that was about the size of a Harley Davidson motorcycle, and I always thought about being the same size, and had ways of moving it and so forth. And it would make smoke, and this smoke would go out and cover the whole area. Now there was a number of other ships that had these machines also, and it would cover the area with smoke, and this would go up into the air probably 50, 60 feet or so, and it would stay there for some period of time. And then at that time, when you're in the harbor, it would be difficult for a Japanese plane to come over and to bomb us sitting there at night. with the smoke covering the area like that, they couldn't tell where we were. And they knew they were in there somewhere, but there's a lot of other area in there where there wasn't anything, so they didn't bother bombing until they knew somebody was there. One time, off of the shore, on the shore, when we were on all beached, I think there were five ships of us all beached on Aishima, and the Japs came over and dropped 5 bombs, and they missed us all, fortunately, but they were close enough that next morning, when the boys went out to sweep up the deck, they were sweeping up shrapnel all over all those 5 ships were sweeping up shrapnel where it had blown over into our decks, but nobody had gotten hurt.
Wow.
They could have gotten us all as far as that was concerned, but the good Lord was with us.
Now, after the invasion of Okinawa, then you were in the invasion of Aishima.
Yeah, well, during
During?
Yeah, during we took off and went up to Aishima to help unload some things up there with a load of Air Force equipment. One of the loads was Air Force equipment, and we went to various islands up there in the process. But then we'd go to one island, and if they needed something from there to another island, we would go and bring it. We were our transporters. That's what we did. We transported. They could load us. They could load us from the front, or they could load us from the top, with cargo nets or with vehicles that you could drive on the ship with.
Now, where did the LMS end up?
Well, we took, when the war was over, we took occupation forces into Japan, up into Tokyo Bay, and Yokohama, the city of Yokohama is located in Tokyo Bay. We had occupation forces. We had some good-sized guns. I think there were 155s. A couple of those and trucks that pulled them, and some other gear that we took and unloaded there at the dock in Yokohama. And I remember at the time when we went there, I noticed it was awfully cold to me, and I said, I'm going to find out. Now, we had, mind you, been on the equator for better part of a year, and of course we weren't accustomed to anything cool. 70 degrees, I found out. I went down below, put my jacket on, my foul weather jacket, zippered it up, and went up, and it said 70 degrees, and I said, oh my gosh. I never thought it, and but we had been where it was so hot for so long that we got accustomed to it, and then we left. When we left Japan to come back down to I don't know, I think we were headed for the Philippines again, and we were coming back down, and we got just off the coast of China, and a typhoon hit us. And that at that time, that hydraulic coupling on the engine decided to go out again, and so we lost one engine, the use of one engine. So we pulled in at Buckner Bay at Okinawa, waiting to get some work done on us. And at that time, we got hit by a second typhoon. And the second typhoon, we were ordered to leave, but our captain said it would be hazardous to the crew to go out to sea with only one engine that we knew of. And if we had problems with that one, we would be at the mercy of the storm. So we waited. That storm, we were using our stern anchor, which is considerable in size, probably 3 inches in diameter or so, and that broke. The storm hit around 2 o'clock in the morning, and let's see, it was I think I probably have the the date that it hit here, but anyway, it hit around 2 o'clock in the morning, and at 9 o'clock in the morning, the stern anchor cable parted, and we were headed for the beach. So when we headed for the beach, the ship went up over a coral reef, dropped down into a hollow, and then went up against another coral reef, and we vacillated back and forth between those 2 points until the engine room started flooding. So we abandoned the engine room, and everybody came up on deck with their life jackets on. And we finally decided to abandon the ship, but we left a force of 6 men aboard just to take care of anything that could be taken care of. We knew that we weren't going to get, the ship wasn't going to go down too far, but we left those fellows aboard to take care of anything that they could do, but took the vast majority of the ship off. We had 55 men. We had 50 men and 5 officers, and so most of us went ashore and went on Okinawa and went in various places to get out of the storm, so to speak. Some of us went into vaults and cemeteries that were they were out of the wind and so forth. And then finally, about 11 o'clock at night, we started walking the roads. The storm let up a little bit, and about 11 o'clock at night, I ran into a place. Some of us walked up to this Navy Quonset hut there, and that was the best cup of coffee I ever had in my life.
Yeah.
Had it in a bowl, and I didn't have anything else there to eat, but they had good coffee. And so the next day the storm let up, and we went back to the ship. And then there was a debate as to whether we were going to go home or not, and finally they did send us home. Took us off the ship and sent us ashore for a week or 2, and then we went home, and we arrived in San Diego, I think it was, on the 1st of a day before New Year's Day. Yeah, a couple of days before New Year's Day.
So you sailed from Okinawa to San Diego?
Yeah, they sent us on a landing ship dock. They used to call it a landing ship dock in those days. It was about 500 feet long or so. And but our ship stayed right there. And we had, before we left the ship, we took a lot of the supplies and things on it that were there off. While we sat there on the beach, we did have, the Army loaned us a portable generator, so we did have power. And our crew quarters, the engine room was flooded, so you couldn't get in there. And but our crew quarters were not flooded, and we still could live in there. And we lived in there for a short period of time before they sent us ashore and then sent us home.
And that your ship was eventually scrapped, was it?
Yeah, it was eventually scrapped. Yeah.
Okay.
And they took the engines off and anything that was usable, but not when we were there.
Okay.
They still didn't get into that stage of it while we were there yet.
Right.
Now, you were discharged then from San Diego?
No.
No.
Then we went there, and we were due what was called terminal leave. We went home, and then came back to various places, and they asked where I wanted to go to, and they said Brooklyn Navy Yard, and I said no, not Brooklyn Navy Yard, because I knew I'd go right back to a ship if I was. So I said Buffalo. I'd like to go to Buffalo. I had an option of going to Buffalo. So I went into Buffalo at 7 o'clock in the morning, and at 7 o'clock that night, I was headed for Shoemaker, California. So
Right around.
You know.
so they sent me to Shoemaker, California, which was a naval receiving station, and we were there for a period of time at the receiving station.
Mhm.
And I was asked whether what kind of a ship I would like, and I said none, and because I felt that in the course of time I was due shore duty, in which according to Navy regulations you are.
Mhm.
And of course they wanted me back aboard ship, being a signalman with experience. And no, I said I'd rather not. As it turned out, while I was overseas, I had chronic seasickness, but I had gotten it over to a large degree.
Mhm.
But it was entered into my record that by our pharmacist mate that I had at the time that I had chronic seasickness. So I didn't get called to go aboard ship. Our whole barracks, it was evacuated except 2 of us. And so we had it kind of nice, you know. This other fellow and I became friends, and we'd go to lunch together and dinner together and so forth, and on Liberty. And one day, we had a big voice come on the PA system. Girard and this other fellow report to headquarters. I asked him, "Did you do anything?" He says, "No, I didn't." "Did you do anything?" I said, "No, I've been behaving myself. I did nothing." And we got over there, and the fellow said, when we walked in, he had his feet up on the desk, and he says, "Who do you people know?" So what do you mean, who do you people know? He said, "Well, you've been assigned permanent party in the Army, which is a ship's company in the Navy, to the base as processing petty officers." So I said, "Nice." But the only thing was only for a short period of time, and I was going to be going home anyway. But I did have the experience of being able to operate a theater, to bring men through from anywhere from 50 to 150 every day for a period of time, and we used to process about 3,500 every day, and then that kept letting down, until finally we only had a few, maybe 500, 600 or so, and every day, so that the job became less and less. And then I was sent to be discharged, and I was discharged from, I was sent to Lido Beach down in New York. And I remember at Lido Beach, the day that they were trying to talk to us to re-enlist, you would have sworn that Bob Hope was on the stage. And the more this fellow talked to us, the more we laughed, because a lot of us had been that, we had heard all the songs all of the messages that they had on re-enlisting, and we wanted to go home. So that was the best place, and that we endured the Navy. That's gonna say, the Navy is a very good place to go if you have to be in the service. I think I speak highly of it, because there's a lot of different positions and a lot of different areas and things that you could do that would accommodate everyone's ability. But
All right, now you were discharged from the Navy then? And
yeah, we were discharged from the Navy, and we went home.
When was that?
April 8th, 1946.
Hey, you remember that very
Yeah,
well.
11 o'clock in the morning.
Can't forget that.
No.
Okay, now what, of all of your experiences, Ernie, what would you say is the most memorable?
Well, it's kind of difficult. It's difficult to say, because we had so many different things that I don't know to put my finger right on any one particular place. Would be difficult to do. I had a lot of different chances to learn and a lot of things that I was put in a position where, while I was a boardship, I had the opportunity to learn these things that it kept my interest in that. I could have been pretty bored and upset, but I wasn't, and because of the different jobs that I was given, I was fortunate in that I went to signal school, and when I went to signal school, you had to communicate, and when you had to communicate, that was the ability of conversation, and I think that has worked with me all of my life, and it's been an asset, even though I didn't think maybe it was at the time.
Sure.
That's true.
So, you know.
Okay. Now, after you returned to the Oswego area, then you went back to high school,
Yeah, I went back to high school and bought a new car.
became a member of the class of 48 at Oswego High.
Yeah, I became a member of the class of 48 at Oswego High. I went back to a job that I'd had briefly, and I decided I didn't want to stay at that job, and so I left. And then I did something that I had taken some salesmanship when I was in high school, and that was another good course that I liked. And it enabled me to build up some dry cleaning routes, which I had the ability then of knocking on doors and getting rejected and not getting rejected and this sort of thing, and which it helped me in later life, I figure, in that respect. In the process, I had taken the civil service test and was on the civil service list to go to work for the post office, but in the meantime, I got a job with Niagara Mohawk, and by the time that by the time that the postmaster called me, I was already in the office of Niagara Mohawk, and I said, I don't think I'll do the post office job, and I'll stay right here with Niagara Mohawk, and I did for 35 years.
Okay.
Yeah, in the gas department, and I did a lot of different things in the gas department. Anything from working with a pick shovel in a bar, and and back in those days we didn't have backhoes, and all of our services were dug by hand, so yeah, it was a tough job, but I only had it for a short length of time because a job opened and I was in the office, and so I went to the office, and it was one of the office jobs that paid a little better than some did.
Now, how long have you lived in Scribble?
Just a little longer than I lived anywhere else right now. Let's see. I think I've lived in Scribble since 1958.
Okay.
Yeah, that's when I got married, and I built my own house. I was the contractor. I worked as contractor for my own house, and I did my own plumbing and heating, and some of the electricity, and of course, the finishing. I did the finished carpenter work in the house, and with my wife's help. And my wife also helped me with the plumbing. Of course, sometimes an extra pair of hands is always needed, and, you know, this sort of thing.
Now, when did you go into politics?
1979. I had talked with Mr. Richardson, Ernie Richardson at the time, and I said I want to do something in the town government. Well, he said, I think I'm going to retire, he said, as councilman or as committeeman. And I said, okay, see what you can do. And so he made it possible for me to have a meeting with the Republican committee in the city of Oswego. Oswego County, that is. And then after they had talked to me for a while, they said, well, do you know what this job entails? And I says, what job is that? They said, councilman. I said, oh yes. I says, I've been to town board meetings, so I know what it entails and what has to be done and so forth. And I said, well, okay. And so they give me their endorsement, and so that's what I've been working since 1980.
And the rest is history, as
The
they
rest
say,
is
right?
history. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for coming in, Ernie.
Yeah.
We appreciate
Yeah.
getting you.
Been a
and-
pleasure.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome. Glad I could let some light on the subject.
Yes.
Well,
yes.
that's very good.